Hello, everyone. Welcome to another VS Code release party, and it is the first VS Code release party of 2023. So very excited to see you all again here today. I know it's only been 2 months since we had one of these, but it feels like a long time. So I'm very pumped to be back here and to have the engineers back on to talk about the awesome work they've done in the first release. For those of you who might be confused why we haven't done one of these in 2 months, it's because the December iteration is a housekeeping time for the team to catch up on closing issues and just, kind of doing regular maintenance of the repos and all that good stuff. So we took December off for a release and came back strong with the January release, and that's what we are here to talk about today. So say hi in the chat. I'm very excited to see you all. We have Ahmad, hello from Syria. Hello, thank you for being here today. David, I'm always pumped to see what your guesses are. Everyone else, go ahead and put where your guesses are for today's release party. David went with profiles, terminal enhancements, and new dark plus and light plus v2 themes. So David, I'll let you know, you're very, very close. Minimum ADHD, hello, how you doing? Fallen Star, good to see you here. Lots of good things. ChatGPT is coming to VS Code. You'll just have to wait and see. We're not going to talk about that today, but we have a lot of great stuff to talk about in the release party today. Let's see, we got Gopnik, ho, 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 hi, what's up? Good to see you guys here. And then lots of other hellos. I'm not going to be able to shout all of you out, but thank you all for being here today. And if you all are new to coming to these release parties, what we're going to have today is a few of the engineers come on and talk about what they worked on in the release. So we picked a few of the features. What we will show here today are just a few of the awesome things that were in it. But for you to see all the awesome features in it, go ahead and make sure that you've downloaded the update so you can get access to all of that and check out the release notes. So usually we actually also start this off with a thank you to our contributors. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can check that out. So this thank you note is going to be at the end of every single release note. So we always make sure that we include a thank you to our contributor section. So like always, there's always so many people in this, so I cannot individually call you all out. But I just wanted to take a second to scroll through this because it is very important. We would not be where we are without all of our contributors. So if your name is on this list and you're watching, thank you so much. We cannot do without you. So you can see there's quite a few list of people, especially since we did have that December milestone where we were doing that housekeeping. So it just kind of keeps going and going. Definitely make sure to check this out. And if you are not already contributing, it's pretty easy to do so. Just head on over to our repo, check out the contributing guide, and you too could potentially be on one of these thank yous. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and let's bring out our very first guest. We will have Sandeep on today to chat about profiles. So David, you're already correct on that very first one. Hey, Sandeep.
Hey, Olivia. Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Excited to see what you have for us.
Yeah, I'm also very excited, and I think it's profiles to go first. And one of your guesses is correct. And here I am to demo the profiles feature, which we released this milestone. Okay. So before jumping into the demo, I just want to give a quick introduction about what profiles and why we want to do this. And VS Code has a lot of customizations. So you can customize VS Code in a different ways. For example, you can configure different settings like the autosave setting, or the font size, or you can also change your themes, like how you want to look at the VS Code, and you can change your keyboard shortcuts. One of my favorite keyboard shortcut is Command Shift W, which closes all my open editors. So there are a lot of customizations you can do, and also you can have these customizations for different projects. You want to have these customizations for different projects. Mainly, you can also have extensions configured or installed for each project. So yeah, it's very powerful. So you can customize VS Code for different projects. But hey, how can I have each project save this open with these customizations? So this is the big feature request we have been working on from last 1 year. And then here comes with the profiles for this requirement. So here you can see there is a lot in my day-to-day life. I think I'll be working on different projects. For example, my main project is working in VS Code. So here I use different extensions. Different extensions and different layouts. And when I go to a different project, for example, we also write our release notes. So here I would need a very simple, lightweight editor. So I want to make sure that, okay, I'm not distracted while writing this. So I have a different layout here and different extensions here. And also we also work on Python project. So there we want to have different setup, right? So yeah, how can we configure these 3 different projects in a way where I can focus more nicely, right? So that's where the profiles helps everyone.
Yes,
so,
I love profiles. And just to cut in real quick, like you mentioned different projects, I personally also love it because I'll do a lot of demos at conference or something like that. And so it's super helpful, again, to have maybe like that lightweight one where you're just showing off the extensions you're demoing or something like that. So you don't have everything you need for a certain project. You can customize, have the lightweight, have it for different projects. I'm all for profiles.
Right, exactly. So it's also for not only for demoing while in the presentations, also while in educational classrooms for teachers, where they want to make sure students when they're teaching the programming languages, they want to make sure students focus on programming language rather than with the editor. They can use this profiles feature so that students can set up their VS Code in the way the teacher wants, and they can just focus on learning the language rather than how to configure the editor, right?
Right.
Yeah. So this is a feature which I want to demo it. I think I already shown how I configured my projects using different profiles, but I would probably go and show you how I configured this. So here is my documentation writing project where we write our release notes. So here I want to create a profile and then make sure I want to have it in a way where it looks and make it easy for me. So we have a profiles entry in the settings gear icon. So where you can go and say create profile, and then I'll start in the scratch, say create an empty profile, and then I say talk writing. So this creates an empty profile, and from there I go and say I want to. Okay, so I'm doing markdown editing. So what extensions can I install? So I have some listed here. This is an extension which helps me in writing my markdown. So I will install this. And there are a couple which I just quickly install them. The all-in-one extension. And yeah, obviously, I think I like the theme, GitHub theme. So I want, whenever I'm writing documentation, I want a theme which is supported by the GitHub. And last but not least, okay, let me also configure the theme here. I like the GitHub default. And then last but not least, GitHub Copilot, which gives me very good suggestions when I'm writing my release notes, right? So I have configured my profile, and then probably I will also say change my layout. My preferable layout is I want to have the sidebar on the right, and also because there are some outlines and timeline views which would be useful, I want to have this on my secondary sidebar. Also the search, which I want to move into the secondary sidebar. So yeah, now I customize my layout. I would probably not jump into the settings, but you know how you can, maybe let me quickly also save my settings. Yeah. Yeah, so now I've configured my profile, right? So now you can see that this VS Code Docs project, which I'm working on, is using this profile. So let's say if I open a different project and come back to this project, whether this profile is stick to that or not. Let's quickly see. So I go back to VS Code project, and this is still in default profile, and come back to my Docs project. Yes, so the profile, the Docs project is still with still associated with the doc writing profile.
Nice.
So this is pretty cool. Yeah, and one more feature which I would like to demo is, hey, for example, I'm in VS Code team, and then yeah, so here is my VS Code profile which I'm using, and I would like to share my profile, what I'm using for VS Code development to one of my team members. I can also do that by exporting the profile. So here is my code profile, and I can say export it, and you get a gist of what you are exporting. And then I say export. We can export it to GitHub gist. Come on, yes. So it got exported, and I copy the link, and I can share it. So when I share it with someone else, for example, let me show you how it looks like. So it is a vscode.dev link. So this is a profile which I shared, and when I open, so you can get a preview of what the profile is. You can actually play around with the profile in vs.dev, and if you like it, you can say, hey, yeah, let me import the profile in VS Code, and it opens the profile in the VS Code. Wrong tab. Let me go back to my VS Code, and then let me do it again. Sorry about that. Oops. Yeah. Try again. Yes. And then it opens the profile in your VS Code, and then you can just say import profile, and your project is set up with this profile.
Cool. That is awesome. Because I mean, I think, you talked earlier about education, for example. This is great for if you're teaching and you want your students to all have the same setup. You don't have to worry about, okay, making sure everyone has the right extension set up. If you have someone new on your team onboarding, you can go ahead and say, hey, these are our base extensions you should installed. Just import this profile and you're all set. I think that this is so powerful. And we actually already had a question about that, asking if you can export profiles as you can export settings. So that's great. There actually is also another question in this asking if this basically works with settings sync and if it will work kind of linked with your GitHub account.
Yeah, it works with settings sync. So if you see, I have settings sync on, and all my profiles are synced. So if I go to a different system and I sync it up, my profiles will be there.
Okay, awesome. There's a couple other questions. There's a couple that David, I know you had at the very start. So will VS Code come with any built-in profiles soon? And will you be able to see third-party profiles on the VS Marketplace?
That's a very good question. So we are planning to come up with some built-in profiles, some profiles like simple text editor or data science. So we have plans to come up with built-in profiles, but providing the support in the marketplace. So it's still not thought about, but yeah, we'll think about it. But there are no plans yet. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that that's really important too to note. Like this is always an iterative process, right? The fact that this is now GA, everyone can go ahead and try this out in their VS Code stable, and then let us know what sort of feedback y'all have. What features do you want to see? How can we make profiles even better? Let's see, there's a couple other questions. One is it also possible to set profiles for different machines and operating systems? For example, maybe you want one for Mac OS and one for Linux.
I think that can be done, right? So you can always create a profile for Mac OS. It's possible, but it's all about how you want to apply it. So if you have a profile for Mac OS on Windows, you can still apply the Mac OS profile on the Windows. So there are no platform-specific profiles, but you can come up with profiles for different platforms.
Cool. And then one question I actually had, can you associate these to a workspace and it will go ahead and just stick that profile?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. And most of the people kept on asking it when we started the preview. Yes, that happens as I demoed before. Once you have a profile asset in your workspace, and if you open the same workspace again, the profile sticks to it.
Okay, awesome. And as we're kind of talking about, other ways we could maybe even make this profiles feature even better, is it possible to extend these profiles? So, kind of make them a hierarchy where you have a base profile and then other ones can extend so you don't have to change things in multiple different profiles?
Yeah. This is something which we are thinking about and brainstorming. How we can introduce hierarchy in the profile. So we have an open issue out there where people who are interested can provide a feedback. But we are definitely thinking about it, how profiles can extend, whether a profile can extend a default profile, or profile can extend from other profiles. But that's been in thinking phase.
Okay, awesome. Let me just make sure we don't have any other questions. Let's see. So there's a question up here asking if it only works in separate projects. And Alex, I'm not positive of the meaning of your question. I think maybe it stems from Sandeep saying, if you're working on different projects, you can have different profiles. But I think the heart of this is just that you can have profiles set up for whatever different workflows you are working on. So Sandeep, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, I think that's correct.
Cool. All right. Well, Sandeep, is there anything else you want to add about what's maybe to come for profiles, or just anything else you want to show before we move on to the next guest?
No. One last thing I think maybe I would like to show. You can also discover more commands for the profiles in the command palette by typing profiles. And there are some advanced commands like creating a temporary profile, which would help you in trying out. And please try it out and give us feedback.
Awesome. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you, Sandeep, so much for working on this and for coming on to the release party. We really appreciate it and so excited to try these out.
Thank you a lot, Olivia, for inviting me.
Of course, anytime. We'll have you back. All right. So up next, we will be having Megan to come on and talk about some accessibility updates. Hey, Megan. Oh, you're muted.
Hey.
Classic. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm always excited to have you on here. And I know our viewers always appreciate it too. A lot of times you come on here to talk about terminals. I know this is more of an accessibility focused one with terminals. So excited to see what you have.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited about this and glad I get to share it.
Yes.
So accessibility is a big focus for our team. And one group of users that relies on accessibility features is screen reader users. And so right now, as you can see, I have VoiceOver on, and that's a screen reader on Mac OS. And I have the sound off currently, otherwise you wouldn't be able to hear me very well. But you can see in this text box here what VoiceOver would be speaking, so that you can follow along with what a screen reader might actually experience when using the code editor. So a long-standing feature that we've had in the editor is this help menu, this accessibility help menu. So I'm pressing Alt and F1 to see these accessibility options. So we want to make sure our accessibility features are actually discoverable. And this is one way that we have informed users about the ones available for the editor historically. And we've done a lot of work recently in improving the terminal's accessibility. But a question is, how can we make that information discoverable? So if I focus the terminal, you can see here quickly that it says use Alt and F1 to enter terminal accessibility help. So similarly to the one in the editor, we have this one that talks about all of the ways we make the terminal accessible. And so it talks about some commands that shell integration offers that improve the experience and provide some help, especially to screen reader users. And you can just focus the terminal to dismiss this, but that's something that's hopefully going to inform people about these features that we have. And one such feature discussed here is this accessibility mode, which we now call accessible buffer, that you can enter with Shift and Tab. So historically, screen readers haven't really had much information about what's going on in the terminal. But my colleague Daniel had this idea that we could present these elements in this mode such that a screen reader, as you can see, can interact with them and go line by line, character by character to read the terminal buffer, which is really cool. And
That's
so you
awesome.
can just press tab to exit this. But our hope is that it makes screen reader users more able to use the terminal, the integrated terminal, effectively.
Awesome. Cool. So is it possible for non-screen reader users to kind of access and use this accessibility buffer?
So currently in this build, no, but that is something that we've added already in Insiders and will be released next month.
Cool. That's a great plug for downloading Insiders. If you all don't already have it, it's a great way to go ahead and kind of get a sneak peek on the features that will be coming out in stable.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. We already have some love for accessibility in here. I think it's a really great call out to show that we are always working on this, and it's always top of mind for our team. And Megan, you do a great job of leading that. If people have any feedback on how to add even more accessibility features into VS Code, what is the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, just create issues on GitHub. I look every morning when I first get into work. I work remotely, but yeah, so just create the feature requests and I'll happily look into them.
Awesome. Cool. And are there any plans to improve upon this accessibility buffer to add even more inclusivity there?
Yeah, absolutely. So a screen reader works by navigating through various HTML elements. And right now, this is just plain divs, essentially. But a screen reader can have certain key bindings that navigate from one type of HTML element to another. So, for example, there's a shortcut for going from heading to heading. And because of shell integration, we know the commands that are run and their output. So again, my colleague Daniel had the idea that we add these specific HTML elements such that a screen reader user can jump from one command to the next, one output to the next, or go command output and know exactly what's going on there instead of just navigating through a sea of text.
Okay, awesome. And that's, I assume, being tracked in issues so people can go ahead and follow along with the progress on that.
That too is in Insiders. So
perfect.
You just download Insiders if you haven't.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Megan, is there anything else that you want to share with accessibility efforts or the terminal in general?
There have also been improvements to the audio queue experience, but nothing in particular that I want to call out.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We love seeing how this accessibility expands to all areas of the editor. And I think bringing it to the terminal is such a great move and really just shows our commitment to that cause. So thank you so much for coming on, Megan. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
All right. So then staying on that terminal note, we actually are going to have our next and final guest, Daniel, to come on and talk about some other terminal updates. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, how are you?
Doing? Excited to have you here.
It's excited to be here.
Yes, I think that this is a great kind of format where we have Megan show some of the cool accessibility stuff in the terminal, and now you can focus on some of the other terminal updates because I know there are a ton in this release.
Yeah. Because of the cleanup release, I tackled a lot of little issues that were nice to finally clean up.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's always nice, I'm sure, to get kind of that time to all those things you kind of put off that you can tick off your box. And we already have a bunch of terminal love from Ivan, sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly, but he says great terminals.
Cool.
All right, so let's see what you got for us today.
Yeah, so I'll start off with probably my favorite new feature, better link detection in the terminal. So these are some of the new cases that we support. So links containing spaces, we now support a few different formats. This has been a very long ask from the community. So if the entire line is a path, we will now detect that, even if it has a space in it. This is the Python error format, and we now detect those as well, including going to the 10th line. Next is a I don't know what tool this is from, but it's from some C++ tool. Support spaces there. And there's another interesting one here. So often tools will output the file underlined, and we'll now consider each independent section.
Oh,
So
cool.
even if it's wrapped in words, in letters that are not separators that we consider, we'll still detect that.
Awesome.
So next one, so paths with square brackets. We did a good job before about, square brackets were marked as separators. So if they're in brackets or curly braces, we would exclude those. But some files nowadays include square brackets. So yeah, we detect those as well, just like regular files.
Cool.
And we also detect some of these more complex cases, like this is a file that has square brackets inside it, and then it's wrapped in square brackets. And this is one that ends in a square bracket. And this one was particularly tricky to get, but we support that.
So is this a lot of regex in the background powering this?
Yeah, mostly.
Okay.
And a lot of the work was about cleaning it up in
Mhm.
this release and the following release.
Cool.
So next is some WSL links. We detect those formats now. And yeah, I mentioned this upcoming release. So there's this particular case and a few other little ones that were very tricky using the current approach. So you see here, it doesn't detect column, and it's because these two characters are a bit like they're treated specially, and we couldn't figure it out with the regex. But what we're moving towards is suffix first detection, meaning we will detect this as the link suffix, and then we'll scan backwards, again, using regex. And with that method, we also detect the prefix. So it's a little thing, but this will also get underlined.
Cool.
Starting quote.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes making sure that all those are discoverable in the correct way.
Yeah.
Awesome work.
And a good side effect of this is it's pretty generalized, the new code, so maybe other parts of the product will pick up improvements later.
Awesome.
So next, some new key bindings. So speaking of links, Control-Shift-O. So that opens up the open detected link prompt, and this actually scans the viewport and presents all the links. So this is how you access links using just the keyboard. And then, so it detects files, it detects URLs, as well as just what we call word links, which is pretty much everything else.
Cool.
So click there, it opens up 10.5. Let's do, so one of these is the workspace search or word links. And what that does is it's a shortcut for Control-P and typing it out. And it searches the workspace.
Awesome.
So some other key bindings. So Megan was mentioning shell integration. So this is something that really helps us add some cool stuff to the terminal. So one of those is we detect your working directories. So in this case, this folder. And feature that was added a while ago, but I don't think it's used that much, is go to recent directory. And that's now bound to Control-G, similar to the editor key binding. So Control-G, these are the directories I've been to recently, and you can just go to that, and it enters it in, and you're now there.
Oh, nice. That's so handy.
Yeah. And similarly, we also detect the recent commands you've run. So you can do this normally with a shell by doing Control-R and typing. Speaking of accessibility, that's not particularly accessible, and we want to improve that experience. So Control-Alt-R will open up the run recent command dialog, and that can be searched and entered in a similar way.
Nice. Cool. So one question I had, we've been seeing kind of a couple of different questions throughout the chat about just performance in general. This link detection, talking about the suffix first detection to come, is that going to impact performance at all?
So at general performance, it shouldn't impact at all because we evaluate the links lazily. Originally, like years ago, we would wait until the data in the terminal would stop, and then we'd scan everything and detect the links and put them in. What we do now is when you hover a line, we detect the links there. So, there's a few millisecond delay, but we only ever scan a single line, or if it's wrapped, the whole wrapped line. And yeah, it only happens when you hover the terminal.
So nothing noticeable though, unless you're really
unless you're on like a really slow remote connection.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's good to know. And we have one question asking just like how we can make all these terminal features discoverable. If the best way is through the command palette or
question. So I recently rewrote the terminal docs, and it essentially describes every single feature. Before it was very minimal. So one way is to read the docs. Some other things that we've done to improve discoverability is, so these new key bindings, you may just accidentally press Control-D and you discover that feature. Megan's accessibility help is a good way of discovering for screen reader users. And then actually the next thing I was going to show also helps with discoverability. You might have noticed this overflow menu here. So a long ask for the terminal has been to have a clear terminal button up here. And we now have it in here along with run active file and run selected text. So these are hidden by default, but you can toggle them on to display them.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I was always very resistant to adding this feature because we couldn't do this hidden by default thing. But now that we do, we can keep this fairly minimal and if they want it.
Yeah, I feel like that's key. And I think that is really good to show people like those principles are throughout the entire editor, right? So we've seen that already with the ability to, hide things on command center, things like that. And so bringing that to the terminal, I think just shows that we're very committed to having that overall user experience throughout the entire editor.
Yeah, discoverability versus yeah, that's my dog fighting. Discoverability versus minimalism, and
yeah, it's a fine line, like making sure that there's features that people actually know about, but also not being like in your face, like, hey, try this out.
And we talk about that a lot within the team. And then one more thing I was going to show was it's unsafe profile detection. So recently we had to remove the detection of Cygwin shell due to a security issue. What that security issue was if you have an executable in a folder that is not like program files or user data, multiple users could edit it. So if you're in an environment that allows multiple users to log into a machine, they could maliciously replace the executable. And then we'd say, hey, this is Cygwin, you can use it. So now we handle that. So if you go into configuring your shells, that was click here and then select default profile. So if you scroll down, there's a few more in this detected section. So this is like only Windows PowerShell was here before because that's like the legacy PowerShell. These do not show up in the dropdown by default. If you want to use them, so here's Cygwin, click here. We explain that, hey, this could potentially be unsafe.
Okay.
And while this might look scary, if we have to warn you about it. We have to warn you about it. But if you see this executable and you installed Cygwin, there's nothing to worry about. So you say yes, and now this shows up here.
Okay, cool. So it's kind of like that little extra safety check to be like, okay, are you sure?
Yeah, and sometimes it can be confusing how to configure these. So we also added M62 bash and Commander. Like this in particular is a bit tricky. Like you need to know to run command prompt and then /k.
Right. And
then the CMD file from Commander.
Cool. Awesome. We have a couple of comments on your dog. We have, what is that sound? Feels like a cow. That's Daniel's stomach, not his dog. There was one that was like, is there a wild hog here?
Yeah,
we have to see the dog.
Oh. The name's Nova.
Nova. Okay. It's just Nova. It's not a cow. Don't worry, guys.
And she wrestles with my other dog.
My dog that does the same thing, so I like make him go far away from me because I know he'll just like go insane at the exact worst moment.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so back to the terminal. We had a couple of general questions. A couple on just kind of customizing it. So one was, how can you make the terminal more colorful, like if there's an extension or setting? And then a little while back that I can't scroll to, but someone also asked if you can customize font size and the actual font on the terminal.
Yep. So the colors are all defined in the theme. So you can change your theme to whatever, and it might make it more muted, more vibrant. To get like pretty colors, like I think my PowerShell, oh, I turned it off. But yeah, I normally have a very colorful prompt using Powerline, and that you would configure in PowerShell.
Okay, cool.
And as for changing font and other appearance, so there's a very detailed a page dedicated to that, terminal appearance, on the docs website now. But yeah, you can change an awful lot of stuff. Open up settings, terminal, font. But this is a subset of them. So font family, font size, font weight. You can change the weight of the bold characters only, line height. There's letter spacing, which isn't showing up here. Yeah, lots of options.
Cool. Awesome. Lots of love for Nova in the chat. Cool. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to share about updates to the terminal or what the roadmap ahead is for the terminal?
I guess for the future, something I've been working on is autocomplete, specifically starting with PowerShell to start, but it could be generalized to Bash or any shell. So that's like in progress. I don't know when it'll eventually reach you, but yeah, it's pretty cool when it works.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. We love having you on this, and we love seeing Nova. So more than welcome for both of you to make an appearance at any time in these release parties. So thank you so much for showing all the terminal updates and for all your hard work.
Yep. See ya. Thanks.
All right. Well, all you viewers at home or work or wherever you are, thank you so much for tuning in. It was another great release party. We will be back at you again with another release party at the start of March. But while you're here, go ahead and if you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. And then also while you're at it, you can go ahead and check out our TikTok channel where we'll post shorts throughout the week, try to be funny, show some cool tips and tricks on VS Code, all that good stuff. As always happy to be here and host some of the engineers to see some of the really hard work that goes into these releases, and to thank all of our contributors for making VS Code truly the best product there is. So thank you all again, and we will see you next time.